leadership level.
Yeah, I can't imagine why they're enjoying it with the prospect of those cabinet jobs, ministerial limos, access to power. But they don't seem to mention the key thing on your clip there. They're all talking about little bits of stuff on extra spending on schools and tweaking around the edges on a bit of tax policy. But where's the references to voting reform, which was the holy grail for the party? I mean, it sounds as though they may have sort of sold their principles out just for a seat in government. I mean, I'd like to be proved wrong, but I didn't hear, all we heard in the run-up to this was electoral reform, and stopped 2 or 3 MPs and Paddy Ashton on the way out, and there was no mention of that.
But Ian, does it make you nervous at all, or would it make grassroots Conservative members nervous seeing the Liberal Democrats quite so cock-a-hoop?
Well, I don't know why you're so cynical about this.
Me.
I mean, it's ridiculous. No, I don't think it does. There was only one sign of a beard in the people that came out of that.
Two beards.
Well, they're two. Well, they're
BBC
two.
stereotyping them already. They've only been in power
I missed the second one. No, I think it's quite incredible that the Liberal Democrats have been unanimous about anything. It's unheard of. Even they would admit that. So I think Nick Clegg has done a fantastic job there tonight in getting them to sign up to this, because obviously there will be things in that agreement which they will not like, just as there will be things that I won't like when I read it tomorrow. I'm absolutely sure of that. But a job's got to be done, and if you're going to go into a coalition with someone, you've got to make compromises.
George, are you finding this harder to swallow?
No, I mean, I do think it's a groundbreaking deal. But interesting, I mean, Nick Clegg's still in command of his party. I mean, unlike David Cameron, OK, he didn't pass the hurdle for an overall majority, but I mean, he won scores more Conservative MPs, and after the defeats they've had, 3 in a row, that was a significant achievement. But Nick Clegg actually took his party backwards. Fewer MPs. But yet, even as a result of that, there he is, got them into government, got some of their flagship policies being implemented. So he clearly is dominant in charge of his party. But quite how long it'll be before the inevitable rumblings start. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are, when Tony Blair, the rumblings against him, or Gordon Brown, they will start. And that's going to be the real test for Nick Clegg, is not the euphoria that they've got now. It's, can he control a bunch of MPs who are a bit like herding cats? I mean, the Lib Dems, you know, parts of the country they're fighting Labour, so they're sort of trying to be kind of alternative Tories, and then in other parts of the country they're fighting Conservatives, and they're trying to be the alternative to Labour. So they're a very disparate bunch of people, I think much more disparate than either the Conservative or the Labour Party.
Let's run through some of the papers. There's the Times front page, embracing change. I mean, Vincent, would you agree there is change in the air?
Absolutely, and it's an enduring image. I mean, as we were discussing earlier, it stresses the pregnancy element of it. You know, Sam Cam's going into number 10, a pregnant woman, and David's got his hand on her bump there, embracing change in all sorts of ways. It's a good image. And
Street, embittered, you know, didn't have that same sort of hinterland to fall back on, or Margaret Thatcher to a certain extent.
Well, he had a hinterland to fall back on, but
well,
not a family, didn't he?
But not a family. Not a family.
Music,
well, he had
yachts,
music and his yachts.
Yeah.
But I'm sure for Gordon Brown, you know, with those 2 young children, and I'm sure there's going to be something which is going to make up for an awful lot of, you know, the personal disappointment that he must be feeling over, you know, the loss of office.
It will be a real shock for him to lose office. I mean, he must have prepared for it to an extent, but when he probably hasn't used a telephone himself for the last 2 or 3 years. He probably hasn't driven, well, I'm not sure he drives a car anyway, but there's all these things that we all take for granted, we do in our everyday lives, but Prime Ministers don't. And I mean, when Margaret Thatcher was ousted, I mean, she found it incredibly difficult to revert back to normal daily life. She hadn't driven for sort of 15 years, she hadn't done that, she hadn't got a phone book, she didn't know how she could phone people, because she didn't have their numbers.
They've got a practical problem as well, because of course the only accommodation that the Browns have in London is a very small flat with no garden and no outside space. So apart from anything else, I mean, he's got his home in Scotland, but he's got to find somewhere in London to live, so hasn't actually got anywhere to live.
He'll get some big international jobs soon, won't he? I mean, Gordon Brown won't be sitting around.
Well, he said, didn't he, that he wasn't going, this was on GMTV's sofa, wasn't it, that he wasn't going down the business street. It was
well, I don't think he'd be like Tony Blair, sort of on the lecture circuit, making millions and working as advisors to sort of all sorts of international companies, but World Bank or something. I mean, I'm sure. Or
He's not
United
going to be
Nations.
short of a penny or two.
Gordon
Anyway,
Brown-
what
Gordon
are
Brown
the
has it.
Conservative commentators doing here worrying about Gordon Brown?
Well, to be fair, when I watched his resignation statement, and I will admit live on television that my eyes were a little bit moist. I think he's been the worst Prime Minister of my lifetime, but it was quite a human moment when you see someone losing their job in a very public way, and I thought he was very dignified. So, I mean, fair play to him.
I mean, this was with the children was so striking, wasn't it? The moment they walked out the door, because you hadn't seen them.
And it's significant because they've made a point of not putting their children in the limelight, and they've actually made a feature of that. And the media have been asked not to photograph them and not to use the images. And even that image there, although they were on television, is a back shot of the children as they walk away. And of course, it's going to be very interesting with David Cameron has made his children public, and he doesn't mind them being photographed. But Nick Clegg is very different, actually. Nick Clegg has got 3 with his wife Miriam, has got 3 children, and they have a sort of rule which is, would you please not take pictures of our children? He's now going to be Deputy Prime Minister, so
I
it's
wonder
going to be
what
interesting.
Miriam thinks about this. I wonder whether she's looking forward to what's coming.
Of course, she
because
wouldn't
she's
vote.
very- she has a very successful
Any
job.
citizen, wouldn't
But
she?
I
She
doubt
didn't have a
whether
vote
she
in
was
it.
looking forward, or even 2 days ago contemplated him becoming Deputy Prime Minister. I mean, this could be quite a pivotal job.
And it would be a question of whether she gives up the job or not, because she works for a sort of very successful London law firm, and I would imagine she'd be reluctant to give that up.
But it's not in the same role as a sort of prime ministerial concept, isn't it? That, okay, I think Samantha Cameron's going to have to think seriously about whether she continues her job. But I would have thought it's not the
Pauline
same pressure
Prescott,
on
we
Miriam
always
Clegg.
she had a very high profile, didn't she? Pauline,
high
as
profile.
wife of
Elspeth Howe kept up her various jobs. She was on some various quangos, wasn't she,
Yeah.
while her husband was Deputy Prime Minister?